Well, it looks like I already have people connecting here. I am trying to figure this all out for my next round of live streaming here. I didn't even tweet anything yet. I'm even less prepared, I would say, than I was for the last one. So I am going to get this tweeted out if I can. I have no idea what that question's supposed to be about. 35 viewers. Where is the link to this stream? I have no idea. I am sorry. I apologize for my lack of preparedness today. I honestly, truly cannot find the link that I need to tweet this out. That is so bizarre. I am using a completely different setup today, one that should theoretically be showing the live chat embedded over the stream. Hopefully that's actually working. YouTube decided to notify you. That's really handy. Is the chat box working? I don't think it is. That's annoying. Where's the link? That's the link to the app. Oh, the chat box is working? Oh, I see it now. Okay, great. All right, cool. Sorry. Yeah, thanks everyone for putting up with this while I figure out exactly what I'm doing here. I have plans to do something quite a bit more exciting next week, and I just thought I would go live real quick with something and see what I could get out of a quick test. But I still do not understand why YouTube is not showing me the link that I need to post to Twitter. So where the heck is that? And I already have 77 people online right now. If someone can actually post the Twitter link, that would be really cool. I mean, not the Twitter link, the YouTube link. I do not understand. Stream health, analytics, stream connection. I have an idea. I'm going to have to be smarter about this in the future. 78 people up. Hey, there we go. Oh, I can see me on a different window. All right, we are good. I think I have everything I need to have. Although I would say not everything's working exactly like I want it to. Chat overlay works, low contrast. Oh, that'll be better in just a minute because we're going to be looking at things from here. All right, so this is the project. In case you didn't already catch that, I was asked to do a code review of this Qt Ray Tracer challenge. And I just notified the author by retweeting this comment, Tobias Marczysko. I believe that is Polish. And I am not great at Polish names. But, okay. So this is the project. It's the Qt Ray Tracer Challenge. Now, I want to say that for once, I actually got things compiling before, starting with getting you on here. And oh, my face is, obviously you can see me today. And I did that because of the comments that when I was taking a drink or something, people didn't know what I was doing. So that's there so that you can see me a little bit more. This is the Qt Ray Tracer Challenge. Here's the link. The link is also in the description on GitHub. Now, the very first thing that I noticed when I tried to get this running is I just pointed CMake. I just pointed Sealion. I pointed Sealion at this project, and I immediately got an error saying that it couldn't use the project because the project folder was already in use by Tobias, basically. And I took a second for me to figure out what was going on. I'm pretty sure it is because of the CMake cache file that's in here. Yes, this is the CMake cache file for a very specific directory. So this is my first code review. Delete the CMake cache. That would really help things out a lot for people who are trying to use your project. And I haven't actually taken a look at the project at all yet. I just proved that I could get it running. And so this is what we have. We have a ray tracer that's got various views and various things going on here. So as I change this, you should be able to see it as live updating this box down here in the window in the bottom corner. These settings don't give me a whole lot to work with here. I'm trying to see if I can increase the size of this at all, not that I can tell. So that's what we have. We have a little toy ray tracer, which seems pretty cool, actually. If I had any idea how to create a new object, I would. I have no idea what I did. It's taking a while though. Oh, I see. So it's the standard scene kind of thing here. So this ray trace in the bottom left corner is just telling me the material that I'm currently editing. And then this is showing me the output over here. Is there a reason to have the CMake cache ever checked into the repository? Not that I can possibly imagine. And it looks like I'm actually, I hope the chat overlay is working and doing something meaningful now here. It looks like, oh, there's Tobias online. Yeah, sorry I didn't give you any notification at all. And I have no idea how long I'm going to stay on doing this today. Like I said, I really wanted to test my setup. I don't know if the chat overlay, like I said, is really making sense yet. On the window that I have, it's really hard for me to see if it is working well, but hopefully this is better contrast. So Tobias, since you just joined, we were just commenting that the initial problem that I ran into as a user of your project was that you had checked in your CMake cache file, and that was a bit of a problem for me. And it is possible that a git ignore, yes, could ignore that. I'm going to try to keep everything in here. I can see I had to install a few extra packages on Arch Linux. And you can see that I deleted the CMake cache here. So there was a .git ignore. And I'm probably, it's ignoring the CMake, build folders, that kind of thing. I think CMake cache is probably a good one to ignore in there. So as I was saying, I haven't really looked at the code at all. I definitely appreciate that it has some sort of test going here. Well, it has catch, but I don't actually see any testing happening. So what are we looking at if I open this? Test tuple, test subtract points. Oh, I see. This is testing of every single thing in the book. Is that right? I think it is. I don't see any other chats coming through, so I don't know if I'm looking at the right. window over here. Okay, no one seems to be streaming at the moment, or seems to be chatting unless, well, I don't know what's going on. All right, so yeah, it looks like there's a bunch of tests here and testing various things that have been created in the project. So let's go ahead and go to the definition of this. All right, so this is tuple.cpp, and this is defined in Tobias's project and main tuple.cpp. All right, looks pretty legit. Now I see that we've got this defined in header and CPP file separation. Now this is the kind of class that I personally, long delay. Is there anything I can do about that at the moment? I forgot to set the lower delay. Options on YouTube, unfortunately. I like this comment from Frederico, that it's better to leave the CMake cache unignored because a cache file in the root is a repo of an in-source build done by mistake. Better to be notified about it, in my opinion. That's a really interesting point, actually. I think I might agree with that. Because, yeah, you really shouldn't, in general, be doing in-source builds. And I know some projects systematically disable in-source builds. So, yeah, definitely something to consider. If anyone wants to post a link to the book that's being referenced, please do. I don't know what it is. And I realize I've got other problems going on with my streaming setup, so I can't really see the live dashboard at the moment. Hopefully everything's going okay. And I also can not really see the current chat. So hopefully that will not be too much of a problem. I'm going to try to keep my eye on the chat. And again, sorry about the delay. So like I said, I'm going to go through this. I know a lot of people are joining late. This is not going to be as long as yesterday's. And I did not announce it at all. Yesterday's, last week's. I just wanted to try to test my new setup and see how well the things like overlay worked for the chat window. So I want to say, looking at this tuple class, that I would personally have defined this in line because this is such a simple class. Now, the problem that we have with this particular layout is we can't const expr any of these things because they're pre-declared in the header file and then used in the C++ file. And these small utility classes, like this tuple that just contains 3 floats, really seems like the kind of thing that should be const expr to me. And also just from like a performance perspective, you want to be able to give the compiler as much information as possible. I'd probably make that const expr. So the comments were this is a very TDD driven style book. So this is why there's lots of different tests in here, Tuple Vector, and they're organized by chapter. So definitely great that you can look at the tests and you can get a pretty good idea for what the project is doing simply by reading the test. The Ray Tracer challenge. Hey, Ollie. And I'm starting to be able to see the chats come back up again. I'm definitely going to have to adjust this for my next test of all of this stuff. All right. So one thing, by the way, if you didn't know, and again, none of my videos are actually sponsored by Sealion or JetBrains or anything like that, but it is pretty darn cool that they can detect these catch tests. And then if you wanted to run one, you can just click on it and like debug the test and step right into it. It automatically compiles it and executes the one test. I think that's totally awesome. Why isn't the tuple class implemented using SIMD? That is probably not necessary. It is probably the kind of thing that the compiler can optimize for us today. So I would say that would be a micro optimization that is better left until proven that it is necessary. Apparently I had not actually built the test yet, so Sealions doing its thing here. So I would make these constexpr if I could. That would require merging the C++ and header implementations. So there's that. Let's see if vector is something that's approximately the same. And yes, I am using the right-click menus, and I know someone's going to come on and say, hey, why didn't you just use Control-Alt-B? Well, part of the problem is that Control-Alt is going to take me out of my virtual machine input, so that's not going to work. And the other part of the problem is that because I am using the Vim mode for Sealion, not all of these things work like they should. So if you don't see me using certain keyboard shortcuts, it's because they don't work and I haven't reassigned other things that would work in my particular use case. So I do definitely, now it's actually jumping into the debugger. Definitely going to have to do something different with my setup here so that I can have better control over the stream and reading of the messages. Yeah, I have to do something about that. All right, so it ran the test, it executed, it succeeded. That's the end of that. So not really anything exciting to talk about. I definitely like the use of no discard here. Now it's also worth noting that in recent C++ 20, you can make constructors no discard too, and that doesn't actually make sense for this particular project, but I just wanted to throw it out there. On the other hand, if this were defined, again, constexpr, there's no reason why we couldn't use constexpr here for this whole class, particularly this. This is very simple. Yeah. Oops. Added breakpoint. Looks like lots of very similar kinds of projects, classes here that could really definitely be constexpr, I'm pretty sure. Let's see what this set function. So interestingly, the matrix.h actually does have everything defined in line. So let's discuss this. This member function right here. Yes, that is a member function, not a free function. We could just, potentially make this constexpr if all the other things that it relied on were also constexpr. And putting inline in your header file here is probably mostly meaningless for a member function because the compiler is going to choose to do whatever it wants to do anyhow. It's free to completely ignore your inline. And on an interesting aside, I think, if it's constexpr, then it's implicitly inline. So one way or the other, I'd make these all constexpr, but I'm not going to go through and do it all. So I see that the author here did make this bit constexpr. Should the other constructors be defined considering you have copy constructor and default constructor in there? Ooh, where was the copy constructor? Sorry, with the delay here, I'm definitely a little bit behind on the chat messages. That's not a copy constructor. That's not a copy. Ooh. That's a constructor from tuple that initializes the base class. That's interesting. I don't think we have any copy constructors that we need to worry about for the rule of 5. No, I don't think so. No, that's the default constructor. What do I think about the continue keyword? I have no problem with it. Interesting. Message retracted. Sealion moans about no discard on const methods so many times. What's the point? Definitely the point of no discard here on const methods. I mean, that's the point for it to be here. So if I call get call count and don't use the return value, that is almost certainly a bug in my code. Why did I call this function without handling the return value? Therefore, it's likely a bug in my code. Therefore, the current analysis is going to tell you to use no discard. Is there a reason matrix uses dozens of variables instead of an array? Let's look at that one. Actually, what is matrix doing? It's calling set. There's a better way to do that. Oh, set's right there. No, so it's using mdata, and mdata is a C array. So there. That's better. Well, wish no discard was default behavior. Wish const expr was no default behavior. Wish that explicit was default behavior. Wish that, I mean, we can go on and on about all this, but it's a history of a language that's been around for a really long time. No, it's not obvious to the compiler that const methods without side effects should not be discarded. There's some cases where that's not always true, and so it would be difficult for the compiler to get it right in every time, but their modern Clang 10 will actually give warnings on some of these cases. Rows and calls should be static const expr. Totally agree. Thanks, Leslie. Those are properties of the type, because this is fixed here with the type, rows and calls. 100% agree. Now, one thing I might have to do in a future episode on something like this is to actually make a clone and then a commit so I can show the author of the library what things I looked at. Yeah, could probably be const expr. Ooh, interesting. 2x2 and 4x4 specializations. Okay, since we have the author on the line. Are you still here? I'm not going to comment on Rust at all. Tobias, why did you write these specializations instead of, or did you check to see if the compiler unrolled these loops for you? And I ask because I would be shocked if the compiler did not do this loop unrolling and optimization for you in these cases, because the size is a property of the type, so the compiler knows that there's exactly 4 things in here, and it's going to be able to do all this loop unrolling for you. That, to me, I would have to prove without a doubt that the compiler wasn't optimizing this before I would implement these on my own here. I don't have anything to say about the rest of these matrix operations like rotate and stuff. I don't know how hard that is to get right. So let's see, rotation x. That's the only implementation of it is for 4x4 specifically, so that's not an optimization. Interesting. I'm confused. Oh, I see. So they aren't implemented in a generic way at all. They're only implemented in a specific way. Okay, so Tobias agrees. Yes, check it in Godbolt. Yeah, it would definitely be something to do here. Determinant can be calculated at compile time? Can it? I don't know these things. I do not know. It's been forever since I've taken matrix algebra kind of classes. Determinant. Yeah? Definitely could be calculated at compile time if you knew the values. So I feel like with this code in this particular class, I could do this. And feel much better about myself at the end of the day. No, I can't because we don't have constexpr for our common math functions yet. It's such a sad state. And this one can't be constexpr because the constructor isn't constexpr. Something like that. Yeah, again, I'm not going to go through all of this here. So that was interesting. I'm going to just jump into another random file. I'm expecting to make pretty much the same comments. A lot of this. Now, go ahead. We can take this as a vote to some extent here. Do you think that for all of these simple classes, this would all just be better off if everything were defined in the color.h? Or do we need to do this separation? Completely ignore the question of whether or not constexpr comes into play, which it does. If we want these to be constexpr, we pretty much have to put it in the header file at all. I'm just curious what you all think. Do you have a problem with all this being defined in the header file for these common things? I'm starting to get an idea for what the delay is because I can finally see myself updating here. So the C integer types be replaced with the equivalent types from the standard? Yes, they should be. Color is a space, not a type. Okay. And impl.h in place of the CPP. It's an interesting point. You can't actually forward declare constexpr functions. That would be an actual option. Oh, it's interesting. Since the author is chiming in here, why did you end up separating them? You decided they reached a certain size and now they should be separated, or how'd that go? Although it'll be like 15 seconds before I get an answer. Stream delay test start. I didn't read that immediately, but yeah, I see what you're doing there. Yeah. I will do everything I can to reduce the stream delay on my next test. I'll do a private check of this at some point here. Compile time, and they became quite large. Okay. Now I find this interesting because, yeah, that looks about right, about 33 seconds. So yes, we're all lagging a little behind here. Okay. I find it interesting because people who are new to C and C++, say, what's with this header and C++ file distinction? I have no idea what to put where. What's the best practice? We're effectively the only programming languages that have this distinction. So, I mean, we don't have to use it, but if compile time becomes a problem, obviously you do. But if you want to become const expr, then you can't. So I don't know. There's no great answer here. Although I do want to come back to what someone said a moment ago. And yes, I would agree that for most of these, we should be using size t, not unsigned int. Now, the problem with that argument is we know that this is exactly 4, and we're not going to actually get any kind of error here. So yes, but it is more correct to use size t. On that note, we could also do something like this, so that we don't have any of these magic numbers pasted through here. Yeah, both of them. Yeah, maybe on modules we'll get a whole new world here. It feels nicer to know that there's always a H file and a CPP file going together. That is, well, yeah, you didn't do it with matrix though. I don't know. So just for the record though, if you're going to use these separation, because for, code cleanliness or something like that, do be sure to use link time optimization, because that's the only way to really ensure that you're not going to incur this extra overhead of making the function calls. I don't expect to spend a ton more time on this code. I would say we're kind of repeating ourselves. Same questions of, should this be const expr? Should this be no discard? No discard was used in the code. I do want to comment on this. I would try to get away from the habit of using the underscore at the front of your identifier, because this is undefined behavior in the global scope. This is undefined behavior in any scope. And I just kind of make a habit of avoiding underscores in general, but I would suggest maybe if you like the underscore for your parameters, that you could do something like this. Ooh, this is interesting. Why does this have a virtual destructor? Because it has a virtual member function. So let's just say you probably don't want this thing copyable or movable. No, I'm not even going to get into whether or not that's good practice for Qt. We asked ourselves the same questions that we asked before. Point, I would really, really put point just in the header file. This seems not worth it to me. I might have to pause on this one for a minute. I think at this point I can officially say that the header and CPP file separation has gone too far in the case where the CPP file is completely empty. Yes, one underscore before lower letter is okay. I'm saying I don't like the habit because it's too easy to do the wrong thing. It is not okay to assume that every function should be marked no discard. I would say every non-mutating, no. How does that rule go? Any function, any const function that returns a value should be no discard, and some mutating function should be no discard. It's going to be depend on entirely of, is it an error to call this function without handling the return value? Have to think about it. Oh, I see. We got to the, my delay here caught up with me with this ray.cpp and ray.h. Yeah. Yeah, that's gone a step too far. All right. Q object. Yeah, so we're getting into the GUI bits here. World. Ooh, let's see what, I want to be part of the world. So for those of you who are wondering now, I will comment on this real quick. I commented that using inline for member functions is pointless because the compiler is going to do what it wants to do. Inline in a free function defined in the header file is absolutely necessary right here. Otherwise, we would get linker errors and weird ODR violation issues. I am currently using an editor with autocompletion, actually, so I'm not sure what that comment's about. I generally almost always find that the autocompletion doesn't do what I want it to do. I will give an example. Let's see if I can give an example. Yeah, that's a perfect example. I just wanted to put another parenthesis right here, so I do, and the editor says, no, there's already one there. You're good. You don't need to add another one. I go, no, I really do want one. Or I've had other cases where if I do, try to add something, a parenthesis at the front, then it automatically finishes the second parenthesis. Gets in my pain. Gets in my way. All right, I think I'm going to wrap it up for this today. Although, wait. Let's talk about this. Why is world shapes shared pointers instead of unique pointers? Yeah, okay, I'm going to have to agree with on that. These construction functions probably should be in a CVP file in this case, because they're not commonly used functions where the ability for the compiler to inline them or the ability for us to make them const expr has any effect at all. So these are things that are in the CVP file, definitely better hidden away, to clarify my stance on that. But I really want to know why the world.shapes is shared pointers instead of unique pointers. No, let's keep learning. I've had a long day and things didn't necessarily end up how I wanted them to. I started this stream 2 hours later than I meant to. Okay. Okay, I am going to end this with homework for Tobias. Yeah. Make your shapes unique pointers instead of shared pointers. I am guessing that you do not actually have shared ownership here. And I will tell you straight away, exactly the first compile error you'll get is right here. Because this is going to be using an InitializerList, and InitializerList requires the objects to be copied. So this particular function is already about 5 times more expensive than you thought that it was, because it is making these shared objects, shared pointers, in a hidden array right here, and then copying them into the vector. Sorry, went the wrong direction in my code navigation. So yeah, that's going to be difficult. And then get shape pointer from ID. Should it be shared ownership? I don't think so. I think the world owns it. So what you probably want is this to be a reference or an optional reference, and what would be the return type here, or if you actually want the caller of the code to have to deal with the fact that this is a pointer that might be null, then you should be doing something like this and try to get away from shared pointers where you can. Yeah, get shape pointer from ID definitely should be no discard, because that would really be an error to call this function and do that work without using the result. Sorry, I'm even getting a lag on my machine here at this point. And it should be const. Agreed. Although then I have to say these things might need to be hidden private, maybe potentially. How do I pick my next library for code review? I don't know. I was just I just looked for something that I could compile, and then I could compile it, and then I decided to do a live stream real quick because one of the projects I tried to compile, I couldn't. So that is definitely an effect on it. If it's a small, simple, easy to compile thing that I can give a look at, then I will consider it. Like I said, now for those of you who are just now on here, this is 248 people, it says at the moment, I will be making an announcement about what my stream is going to be for next week. I will actually plan it. It is not going to be quite as ad hoc as the current one, and we will see where it goes. So I am definitely getting off now. Sorry that this has been a relatively short one, but thank you everyone for joining, and I hope everyone has a good night.